District.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the November 26th meeting of the Common Council. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, if you'll please read the prepared statement and call the roll.
November 26, 2019. Please be advised this meeting is being taped for audio and video broadcast. The meeting will also be closed captioned. It is important that everyone speak clearly into the microphones and only one person speak at a time. Assisted listening devices are available. Mr. Burnett.
Present.
Mr. Hostin.
Here.
Mr. Langella.
Here.
Mr. Sacchinelli.
Here.
Ms. Smith. Here. Mr. Hubelman.
Here.
Mr. Roberts.
Present.
Mr. Dumas. Ms. Young. Here. Mr. Kites.
Here.
Mr. Theodorides.
Here.
Mr. Keegan.
Here.
Mr. Sirenides.
Here.
Mr. Livingston. Ms. Shanahan. Here. 13 present, you have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes, acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 12th, 2019. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Shanahan moves. Any corrections, deletions, omissions? Misspellings? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
One abstention.
One abstention, two abstentions. Mr. Hostin and Mr. Huberman. Next item on the agenda is public participation.
Sorry.
No one has signed to address the Common Council. Is there anybody who wishes to make any comments or statements at this time? Yes? Please come down and announce yourself and with your name and address.
My name is Sally Marcico. I live on Lancaster Drive here in Norwalk. Lived here for about 35 years. And I just really stood here and standing here to introduce myself because occasionally I get an idea and I send an email out to our mayor and to the Common Council. And I think that I sent one recently, which you may or may not have gotten, but I thought if I'm going to send them, you should at least know who is writing the email. The email that I just recently sent had to do with the rules of conduct in the shopping center, which has now been open, I think, a few weeks, and I think it's going pretty well, but I think that there's a need to have the public informed as to what the rules of conduct in so that the kids can be informed of that by their parents and be aware of it themselves, and they're not just immediately butting up against the security guards. So again, I'm really just here to introduce myself. Occasionally, I took a great interest in this mall from the beginning because I had been in the mall business for about 30 years before this mall was even conceived. So occasionally I do have something I want to share with the leaders of this wonderful community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marcico. Is there anybody else that wishes to address the council? Sir? Just as a reminder, the comments are limited to items that are on the agenda.
Yes. Julio Pardo, 1 Charlie Place. And reviewing the agenda today, I'm a consultant working on the Ryan Park Art Project, and there was a name missing from the list of artists. And that was Ralph Santella. Sante. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't get his name.
Could you come back and spell your name for the clerk? I'm sorry.
Could you also spell the name of the artist that you referenced, please?
Yes, my name is Julio, Julio Pardo, and the artist
Pardo.
is Raf, Raf, Santella.
Ralph Santella.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to address the council? Seeing none, we'll close participation, public participation. Next item on the agenda, resignations and appointments. First appointment is Elizabeth L. Golden to the Historical Commission. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Burnett.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move Liz Golden to be added to the Historical Commission. Liz is just an outstanding servant to the city. You will see her at several different events. She has been active and involved in several organizations. And even when we approached Liz about going on the Historical Commission, most people will just say, yes, put me on. But Liz asked a series of very intelligent questions. She wanted to understand what the responsibilities were. And after speaking with several people, we convinced her to come on the Historical Commission. So we are very thankful that Liz is volunteering and coming on to the commission.
Thank you. Any further comment? I too totally concur with Mr. Burnett. Thank you very much. And seeing no further comment, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Congratulations. Welcome aboard. Next item on the agenda is the appointment of John Igneri for the Redevelopment Agency. At John's last meeting, as well as Mr. Hempstead's last meeting, I indicated that I would be making full use of their expertise and experience to help us move forward. And I talked to John about being on the redevelopment agency. He was excited about it. He, as you know, has been on the council for a period of 8 years, and he was also chairman of the DPW committee. I think he's totally qualified to be in this position, and I'm very pleased that he has agreed to accept the nomination subject to the approval of the Common Council. And I know he'll do a remarkable job as he did while he was on the council. So I would like a motion. Mr. Kites.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As we all know, as council members, a lot of times we put on our nice clothes and we get our special big scissors and we cut a lot of the ribbons of these new developments. And I know that without the work of the redevelopment agency, a lot of that wouldn't happen. And often a lot of their work goes uncredited. And John, after serving you for 6 years, I know what you do is in the best interest of the city and not for the accreditation or the press or anything along those lines. So I know you're going to do a fantastic job in that, and especially with your vast experience with planning issues around the city. So we're lucky to have you.
Mr. Kites has moved the nomination. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Congratulations. The two appointees would come down to the front. The city clerk will administer your oath of office. Yep, you can come right around.
Did you make your own path? If you'll raise your right hand. You, Elizabeth Golden, having been appointed as a member of the Historical Commission of the City of Norwalk, do solemnly swear or affirm that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office according to your best skill and judgment, so help you God, or upon the pains and penalties of perjury.
Congratulations and welcome aboard.
Sign the book, and you can leave me one. Keep the other. Good job. You, John Igneri, having been appointed as a member of the Redevelopment Agency of the City of Norwalk, do solemnly swear or affirm that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office according to your best skill and judgment, so help you God, or upon the pains and penalties of perjury. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll take my pen. You go. Yes, thank you. Thank you for serving. Thanks, John. Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you. John, you're great.
The next item on the agenda is the mayor's remarks. First of all, this weekend, Saturday, is Small Business Saturday, and we ask all people to consider going out and doing some Christmas shopping and holiday shopping at some of the small businesses in town. We know that these small businesses are certainly the lifeblood of any city's economy, and we want to make sure that they have our support and that they continue to thrive and flourish in the city of Norwalk. And again, so I will be visiting a few small businesses on Saturday and thanking them for having their establishment or their business in the city. Also on Sunday, December 1st, there will be 2 tree lighting ceremonies. One will be at the American Legion on County Street, and the other in Roger Ludlow Park in East Norwalk. They both begin at 5 o'clock, so I'm going to have to clone myself somehow so I can get to both of them. But also, I just want to remind everybody that on the first Sunday of every month, except for January, February, and perhaps March, the American Legion holds a ceremony starting at 11 o'clock at their building on County Street, where they honor a deceased veteran from the area. It doesn't have to be someone from Norwalk, it could be someone from the surrounding towns. And it's really a time when we can stop, remember the sacrifices that the men and women who served this country during World War I, World War II, and previous wars, and up to Vietnam, Korea, and certainly the Middle East. Time to stop and recognize their sacrifices and what they do for this country and how they have given us the freedoms that we sometimes take for granted, but we totally enjoy. So I know that the American Legion appreciates the people that come, and I know some of the council members have been there. So if you have an opportunity, it really is a brief ceremony, but certainly proper and fitting that we recognize, again, the men and women who served this great country. The Norwalk City Hall tree lighting will take place right here on Friday, December 6th from 6 to 7 p.m. The Recreation and Parks Department does a really good job each year, not only with decorating our tree out front, but also with providing entertainment for the children. There's music, there's refreshments, a lot of different things that the young people enjoy. So come on out, bring your family, and enjoy the festivities. Last year, for the first time on city property that we can remember, in addition to the holiday or Christmas tree, we had a menorah. And I'm sure that Rabbi Hecht from Temple Beth Israel will be here to light up the menorah whenever we get to
it's the
put it up.
19th.
It's the 19th?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so thank you. It's I've just been told it's the 19th of December. On Saturday, December 7th, will be the annual Community Police Children's Christmas Party at Columbus Magnet School. It's really a nice event where we take some of the young people from the community who sign up, and we have a party for them. We feed them, we give them Christmas presents and bicycles and a lot of different things. So it's really a nice event. If you haven't been there, please stop by. It's on Saturday, December 7th. It starts at 11 o'clock. And just a reminder that City Hall will be closed both Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, and the following Friday. So we ask everybody to recognize that, but also I want to wish everyone, on behalf of the council, on behalf of the city of Norwalk, I want to wish you a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your family, enjoy your friends, and stop and take a moment and recognize that there are people that do not enjoy the abundance of things that sometimes we take for granted. So if there's any way that you can help someone, please adopt a family, somehow, some way, to make sure that everybody has a good Thanksgiving day. Ernie Dumas, one of our councilmen, will be hosting on Thanksgiving Day, starting very early in the morning. He actually started today, I believe. He will be deep frying many turkeys and opening up the South Norwalk, the former South Norwalk Community Center building, and making sure that people from the area can come in and have a free meal. If you haven't been, stop by, say thanks to Ernie for what he does, because he puts a lot of energy and time into it. And from what I understand, I've been there several times and seen the people that come in. They look forward to it. Some of the people that come year after year, he probably feeds as many as 150, Darlene, 200 people that come in and have all the turkey and all the trimmings that they want, and a lot of dessert. So again, it's really a nice thing that Ernie does on Thanksgiving Day. And last but not least, on Thanksgiving Day, we have, and I know we have the public schools, the Norwalk Public Schools here, but we have the annual football game between Norwalk High and Brian McMahon. It's a lot of fun. Come out and cheer for both teams, because there are no losers on that day, and we just want to make sure that everybody has a good time, and it's always been a good tradition here in the city of Norwalk. So thank you all, and I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. And with that, I will now ask the council president to take the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to begin with the Common Council has agreed that it is important and timely to issue a statement on civility that I'd just like to read now. As members of the Common Council, we hold ourselves and other public officials to high levels of decorum and civility. In order to maintain the public trust, we do not condone the use of divisive language in our interactions with other public officials or with our constituents. And secondly, I'd just like to announce council designees to commissions. To the Arts Commission, we have Kadeem Roberts and Emerson Straniti. To the Historical Commission, Tom Livingston. Maritime Authority, Colin Hostin. And to the Water Pollution Control Authority, John Igneri and Vincenzo Capozzoli. And that is all I have, except to call for the consent calendar.
There you go.
Which Greg Burnett will now read.
I believe we had one amendment.
We're going to hold that until after.
Yeah, I think what we'll do, because I think it's off of consent, and we'll put the amendment in
Okay.
when we deal with it, yeah.
The consent calendar, item 6A, Corporate Counsel. 1, authorization to settle claim. That's Novak Lauren and the City of Norwalk Fire Department. Item 7A, 1A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter agreement with JS Endurance for the use of Veterans Park for the Sono Half Marathon 5K to be held Sunday, October 4th, 2020, from 8:30 a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m. Set up to begin at 10 a.m. Saturday, October 3rd, 2020, with tear down no later than 3 p.m. on Sunday, October 3rd, 2020. Estimated attendance, 1,400. Item 7A1B, approve the use of the showmobile for JS Endurance for the Sono Half Marathon 5K to be held Sunday, October 4th, 2020, from 8:30 a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m. Item 7A2, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter an agreement with Greenwich Kennel Club, Longshore Southport Kennel Club, for the use of Taylor Farm for the 88th Greenwich Kennel Club AKC Dog Show, Obedience and Rally Trials, and Longshore and Southport Kennel Club AKC Dog Show to be held Saturday, June 6, 2020, and Sunday, June 7, 2020, from 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. 6:30 p.m. Set up to take place at 6 a.m. on Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020, with tear down no later than 12 noon on Monday, June 8th, 2020. Estimated attendance, 1,000. Item 7A3, authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into agreement with Norwalk Board of Education and the Maritime Aquarium for the use of Veterans Park for the annual Norwalk River Fun Run to be held on Saturday, December 7th, 2019, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., with rain date Sunday, December 8th, 2019. Estimated attendance, 300 to 400. Item 7A4A, authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into agreement with M.E. O'Brien and Sons, Inc. for the San Vicino Park Playground equipment and installation for a sum not to exceed $44,596.75 as the sole source provider for this project. Accounts noted, $3,586.25. Account noted, $21,760.85. Account noted, $19,249.65. Item 7A4B, authorize the Director, Recreations and Parks, to issue change orders to the M.E. O'Brien and Sons, Inc. for the San Vicino Park playground equipment and installation for a sum not to exceed $5,000, account noted. Item 7A5, authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into a licensing agreement with the following artists: Lizzie Rockwell, Carlos Davia, Jermaine West, and David Montoya, together with the Redevelopment Agency and the Housing Authority for the art installation in Ryan Park. Item 7B1 under Finance, accept and approve the report of the Claims Committee dated November 14, 2019. Item 7B2, for informational purpose only, narrative on tax collections dated November 14, 2019. Item 7...
Excuse me, Councilman.
No, let him finish. We'll deal with that after he reads it. And then we'll...
Item 7B3, for informational purposes only, monthly tax collectors report dated September 2019. Item 7B4, authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a contract with Paul Freer for general tax assessor services in amount not to exceed $75,000 and an hourly rate and other terms set forth in the memorandum of Henry Dakowitz dated October 2nd, 2019. Funds available in account noted. Item 7B5, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order for Ali Karama for general tax assessor services in amount not to exceed, that should say $45,000, at an hourly rate and other terms set forth in memorandum of Henry Dakowitz dated October 2nd, 2019. Funds available in account noted. Item 7B6, authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into contract with American Valuation Group, Inc. for special tax assessor services on the mall in a sum not to exceed $60,000. Funds are available in account noted, accounting auditing services. This account has budgeting balance of $158,000. No special appropriation is required. Item 7B7, authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into a contract with Safe Ground Organic Analytics for specialty tax assessor services in a sum not to exceed $75,000 at the terms set forth in the memorandum of Henry Dakowitz dated November 4th, 2019. Funds are available in account noted, accounting auditing services. No additional appropriation is required. Item 7B8, and this item is consent to table. Resolve that a sum not to exceed $1 million being and the same is hereby transferred from fund balance to operating account noted to provide matching funds for the YMCA build-out of the city-owned property located at 98 South Main Street, subject to contract approval. Item 7B11, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Bloom Shapiro to provide a one-time technology assessment at a cost of $39,000. Item 7B12, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all documents necessary to execute the tax abatement, tax filing agreements between the City of Norwalk, the Norwalk Housing Authority, and Trinity WV39 Limited Partnership for Building D and Trinity WV34 Limited Partnership for Building E per enclosed memorandum of Darren A. Callahan, Assistant Corporate Counsel, dated November 21st, 2019. Item 7B13, reauthorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with FIS for the integrated payable services to process electronic payments via ACH and virtual cards as supplemented by the enclosed memorandum of Darren L. Callahan, Assistant Corporate Counsel, dated November 21st, 2019. And that completes the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. Can I just amend item 7A5 to add Ralph Santella to the artist?
Yes.
Okay.
RAF and then Santella, right?
Yes. Okay.
Just take a vote on it.
All right, on the whole calendar. The amendment first? Or
Just say all in favor of the council, the consent calendar as amended.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none. All in favor as amended? Okay, opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Ms. Smith. So now we move to Mr. Burnett for item 7B9.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolved that a sum not to exceed $1 million be and the same is hereby transferred from fund balance to educational account as noted for additional academic resources related to the recent inflow of English language learners.
So Mr. Burnett is moving it. Any comments or questions?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have with us this evening our superintendent, as well as Mr. Tom Hamilton to address this issue. This item has been reviewed by the Board of Estimate Taxation as well as the Finance Committee, and based upon the information that we have received, this funding is critical to providing the necessary services to address the increase in the number of students in this current academic year. There is also forecast that additional students might be coming into the district, so we are utilizing these funds in order to best position all of our students to have the best possible learning experience. So with that, I'll change it to pass the baton to our superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. Mayor Rilling, Ms. Smith, thank you for your consideration of this item and for your support of our schools and the children that they serve. We just want to update briefly some of the material that you have received. I'm going to maybe ask Ms. Young if she would pass this down to you. The special appropriation request was developed in September when we realized after the very busy summer registering that we had registered close to 300 new immigrant students who were English language learners, primarily from Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. These are students who were held for approximately 60 days, for the most part, in federal detention centers at the border, and then released. and they found their way in various ways to various places where they had family or friends or people that they could live with. We check residency very, very carefully, so I can assure you that all of these students are in fact residents of Norwalk, living somewhere, and in many cases living with others, living with family members, living with friends. In addition to that, we have about 70 unaccompanied minors. These are students who are high school students who made the trek on their own to hook up with family members or friends that are here in the city. Many of these students are what is referred to by our federal government as SLIFE, that is, students with limited or interrupted formal education. So that means that a student who might be 16 years old is placed in ninth grade. However, that student has not gone to school since fourth grade, if at all. So, this is very challenging for our teachers. It's considered that there is a tipping point in a school, generally around 25% of students being English language learners. For the teacher in the classroom, that's 1 out of every 4 students. And it's at that point that you have to have supports that deal with this outside of the regular classroom. So we have 6 schools that are over 25%. Largest is Kendall at 34%. So we are looking at for our next school year, a real revamping of our ELL services, because we are at a point that we cannot deliver the services we have at this scale. However, for the rest of this year, need your assistance in expanding the services that we have. You have received in your packet my memorandum to Mayor Rilling requesting the special appropriation. You also received a 2-page budget that details exactly what we would spend this on. There are a number of ELL teachers, a number of bilingual native-speaking paraprofessionals, and other expenses in terms of materials. In our meetings with the city, it was determined that the city would handle the social work services, the social services needed for the families of these children separately, and that is also on your agenda. So the amount going to the school system was reduced by that amount, with the city providing those services directly. So we're here to answer any questions that you have on the proposal that we sent you. And again, this has been an interesting fall, as we have attempted in our schools to deal with what was an unanticipated issue. We pride ourselves on planning. We have a strategic operating plan. We have enrollment projections. In this case, we have simply had to respond to an event and a circumstance that is continuing, but was not anticipated.
Any questions for the superintendent or Mr. Hamilton?
Just have a,
Mr. Holston?
if it's possible, I think it's helpful, the summary you included in our packet of how these resources are going to be allocated by school. Is it possible to give us like a quick summary of, how the ELL instructors or bilingual teaching aids are actually sort of implemented in the classroom?
So just to give you a brief overview, there are 3 recognized methods for learning English, and these are outlined in federal legislation as well as state legislation. It's really what we're bound to. The first and the most successful in terms of the research is dual language. We have a dual language school, the Silvermine School. It is likely in the future we are going to need a second dual language school. That's the most effective, but you have a limited number of students, and it's very expensive. Secondly is the bilingual model. In a bilingual model, you're basically giving a student English language instruction, but you're providing them with some content instruction in their native language while they learn English. And so that requires bilingual paras and interpreters, as you can see in our proposal here. And then the third, which is what most school districts use and what we have used predominantly, is English as a second language, ESL, which is basically an hour a day of English instruction. And the student is in regular classrooms the rest of the time. We do have in the high school what we call these welcome center classes, which are kind of an English boot camp that the student stays in until they know enough English where they can have somewhat of a meaningful experience in regular classrooms. Those are the three methods. We will be, as we look to revamp these services, as I mentioned, we will be doing more in the dual language and bilingual areas, and departing from really what most school districts in Connecticut have relied on, which is the ESL structure.
Any further discussion? Mr. Kites?
More of a request. And
Put
first,
the microphone over.
I'm sorry. I mean, this is an extraordinary amount of kids. Looking even going back 20 years, this is the highest increase that I think Norwalk has seen. That's just going back to 20 years that you have shown us. First, I hope, first of all, talks continue with our state legislation to help secure, if not all, but a portion of this funding, because this funding, this is not just a one-time expense. This is going into your budget, and it'll stay in your budget from next year thereon. I've heard a lot of talk both in the Finance Committee and Senate about what we're doing for the ELL students, but I haven't heard anything about what we're doing for those children who are not ELL students and how they're affected, or any of their possibilities of say issues that may be, because as the father of two kids in the public school system, word has gotten back to me that there have been issues with how non-EL students are learning, and say there is a bit of I'd say put it simply, their education may be suffering because of all of this. So maybe if you can maybe explain if anything's being done to make sure that that's not the case.
Well,
if both parties
I would suggest to you that the best way to help those students who are not English language learners get a good education is to provide support service for those that are learning English. Because without that, the teacher in the classroom, at the point you get to 25%, at the point you get to 1 out of every 4 students in your class not speaking English, think about that. Think about yourself in that position, right? By definition, you have to take a lot of time away from the other children in the class in order to meet the needs of these students who are so in need of attention and time and instruction. So best thing we could do for those students is to have good ELL services. And again, this is a stopgap measure we're looking at tonight. We're going to have a much more comprehensive plan for the next school year. I think the only other thing I would say about this is I think the Board of Education has been very sensitive to this issue over the last several years. A lot of our extensive investment in our gifted programs, for example, have been geared toward those students who are not simply in need, but those students who need to grow faster and have greater learning opportunities. But we have, as a school system this year, we will have grown to 66% high-need students. So in the state of Connecticut, you're a high-need student if you reach one of 3 characteristics. One, you're in special education, so you have some special needs. Secondly, you are an English language learner. And third, you are a low-income student by virtue of qualifying for free lunch. That's the income proxy. So 66% of our school system This year is the first year that our state of Connecticut reached 51%. And so the state now has become poorer, needier in terms of the way we define special needs. As a school district like this, we have to pay very close attention to how these needs are met. Otherwise, what you would be concerned about would be guaranteed to happen. That all the attention of the district would go toward the special needs and not those students who are the so-called average student going to school, hoping to realize their potential.
It sounds like there's a plan in place to best serve these ELL students. Would you also say there's a plan in place to help those children who are not ELL students?
Well, our plan is our regular general education program. It's the operation of our schools. It's the curriculum. It's the support that students receive. We refer to this as Tier 1 instruction. So Tier 1 instruction is the instruction that every child gets from their classroom teacher. Tier 2 is more specialized for those who have other needs. Tier 3 is the most specialized. This is all about Tier 1 instruction. For the last several years, we have worked extensively on addressing this through professional development of our teachers, through new curriculum, through programs and extension opportunities. This is all about Tier 1 instruction now. We have raised the bar in Norwalk in terms of our achievement, primarily by having our Tier 2 students do better than they ever have before. In fact, as we compare to cities in the state, we have the highest scores among ELLs, among low-income children, among students who are in special education. Our future gains are going to be made in terms of Tier 1 instruction, the instruction that everybody gets. And that is a multifaceted issue. It's a talent issue on one hand, best quality teachers. It's a curriculum issue, professional development issue, but it's what you offer day in and day out in terms of the instruction that everyone gets.
I know the Board of Ed is very fact-driven in test scoring, so I'm very curious to see, after a full cycle, what the test scores come in for next year after this influx of VLs.
Oh, yeah, you will not see this for 2 years. The way our state accountability plan works, what will be reported in February is essentially what happened last year, which would be 18-19. The following year, it'll be 19-20. So we would have to wait a year. Now, having said that, there is a cumulative effect here as well. So a student who is learning English, in our experience, it takes about 3 years to reach a level of proficiency where you can really gain from the content of the curriculum. The state does not count the English language learners and their test scores for 2 years. And under federal law, an English language learner can have services for up to 5. So you have this, range of 2 to 5 years, depending upon which system is operative for a student to become. But think of this, think of your own experience, people you might know. You come here and you don't speak any English. It's going to take you a while to acclimate. There's culture, there's context. There's an English language that is not one of the easiest languages in the world to learn. So it will take our students a while. One of the reasons why these percentages are of concern is because this is adding to a body of students who are already here, who may be at a fairly proficient level, but not at grade level, as measured by our state testing system.
Thank you, Dr. Muskie. Mayor?
Further discussion? Mr. Burnett.
Yes. As a result of the additional students coming into the district, has this caused you to, or have you reassessed the strategic plan and made any adjustments to that strategic plan, or are you?
So our strategic operating plan, this is the last year of it. It's a 4-year plan. So the plan will expire at the end of this year. There are a number of issues that the Board of Education has worked on that are kind of are finish up the plan, and those will be addressed in our budget proposal in January. So you may be aware I'm retiring at the end of this year. Board will hire a new superintendent. I expect that they will spend a good part of the next school year, which is 2021, devising a new plan or updating the existing plan relative to the conditions that now exist. Obviously, our achievement levels are much higher than they were 5 years ago, but our challenges are also different, and this is one of them. So I would have the confidence that this is going to be, high on the list of the tasks that the Board of Education embraces in the next year.
Further discussion? Mr. Hostin.
Just curious, what's your level of confidence is that this proposed appropriation will be enough to be a stopgap for this entire year?
I can't say that with certainty. When we developed this in September, we had the benefit of the students that had enrolled with us during the summer and through part of the month of September. The update that I've given you tonight takes us through November, and as you see, it's 100 students more. We had anticipated the students that we could count when this was developed, plus another 90 students who may enroll in January. And by the way, that has been a historic situation for us for a number of years. We get about 90 students every January. And so on that basis, it would take us through the year. We did not anticipate it getting another 52, whatever the number was, English language learners in October, reflecting that November 1 figure that you have. If that were to continue each month, no, we would exhaust this in March. If we can get close to what we've projected on the basis of historical experience, this will last throughout the year.
Could you explain
Ms.
why
Young?
you're seeing an increase? You said in January about the 90 students. What are some of the reasons that's happening?
Well, there are a number of reasons. Those students who are in school in another country, the school year ends at the end of December. So for some families, they will make the decision to make the move at that time. There are also other families who may have some means, some money, where they can take some form of transportation. That's just a better time of the year in order to do that. So I don't know. I think it has to do with this is the difference between the immigrant who is categorized as SLIFE, is not going to school, and those that have been in school in their own countries. And so neither of the two may be able to speak English, but the student who's coming in January is in a better position as a result of having uninterrupted schooling to do well in school.
John?
So I know there's a lot of emphasis on summer slide, and so is there anything that you're doing moving forward to address that with ESL students in a more targeted way?
Absolutely. We run a limited summer program for ELLs now that will continue under this proposal. Under the revamping, we're going to have a full summer program for every student. Now, what we do now, beginning in kindergarten and going up through the 8th grade, is if a student is not reading on grade level, we require them to have our summer academy in order to be promoted. Now, when we started this a number of years ago, this was somewhat controversial, right? Because parents would think, I'd rather go on vacation or I'd rather do something else. But we've reached the point, really, where everyone appreciates the importance of this. And we have just about 100%, very close to 100% attendance. And we do that as a condition of being promoted. So we don't want social promotion. On the other hand, we don't want students staying back in a grade who are not getting support. So summer school is a very well accepted concept in our school system now. And while we have had a small ELL program, we will have a much bigger one. I'd like to see us get to the same point where we just require it until a student is proficient.
Further discussion?
One more quick comment. Just a quick comment. It looks like a majority of these children are going into our high schools, roughly 65% of them. And I heard the reason why Mr. Hamilton made the point at the Finance Committee meeting by saying this, these children are older in age or able to travel over the border and so forth. Do you, Dr. Adamowski, say perhaps maybe seeing that they're in high school, they'll eventually roll out, graduate, and then at that point, those numbers would decrease?
I think two things will occur. One of two things will occur. First of all, these students are under incredible pressure to earn money, to work. So that is always competing with our desire to have them in school and get a high school diploma. So last year we probably lost maybe 35, 40 students who dropped out before their senior year to work. And again, this is a real challenge for the immigrant, because particularly if you're unaccompanied, you're staying with someone, right? You're benefiting from whatever they can share with you. And it's expected that at some point you're going to get out there and fend for yourself. So that's one outcome. Another outcome is the student who can be convinced that their employment opportunities are actually going to be much greater if they finish their high school diploma. Thanks to our counseling staff, I would say that that's the majority of students. So we will lose some. Those students will be replaced by others. We're successful if we can get most of those students to at least a high school diploma.
So there is a possibility some of these children will either graduate soon?
Yes, that actually did occur last year. There are also immigrants who will be with us for a year, and then the family will get their feet on the ground. They will move somewhere else where there is housing that is more affordable.
I just said because we're injecting a large sum of money into a budget that can never be taken away from. So I just
no, I know. So we have these ins and outs, but your net number reflects the big increase. There were ins and outs though before the new arrivals, and I would expect that will continue until our nation has some type of immigration reform or this issue can be addressed in some other way.
thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Langella.
So quick question here. Are we seeing similar trends with other districts as far as like the spike we saw with our ELL students here?
We understand that, first of all, the Chamber of Commerce, our Norwalk Chamber of Commerce, has studied this, and they feel that 80% of all immigration in Connecticut comes to Fairfield County. That was a surprise to me. I thought it was more evenly distributed throughout the state. 80% to Fairfield County. And that's because this is the area of the state that's still doing well economically. You have people of means who can afford, landscapers and restaurants who can afford staff and housekeepers, the kind of jobs that would be available to immigrants that nobody else wants to do, or fewer people want to do. So 80% of all immigration is coming to Fairfield County. Now, there's only 3 places where an immigrant can live, and that's Bridgeport, Norwalk, and Stamford. Right? They can't live in any of our suburbs. This is an extreme form of economic segregation that we practice in Fairfield County, and it's a serious equity issue for our schools, and it's a serious equity issue for every city. So, based upon that, my understanding is that Bridgeport, that had a very significant increase over the last few years, has had fewer this year. Stanford has had slightly less than us, but a significant increase. We've had the greatest increase. And I think the other thing that goes on here is that people will gravitate toward those places where the families that are here say have the best programs for English language learners. As I've indicated earlier, our results for English language learners are higher than any in the state, any city in the state. I'd like to think, and maybe it's not a good thing in the eyes of some people, but I'd like to think that this is one of the reasons why families are attracted here, because, they're following the American dream. And they feel, or at least they've had some input, some information from somebody saying that, this is where you can go. You have a better chance of realizing the American dream through the school system in Norwalk.
Just one additional comment, and thank you for sharing that. Those are very powerful things to say about our program as well. My only ask would be to make sure that we continue to partner with those surrounding cities to understand those historical trends and our historical trends, so that we can perhaps better stay ahead of future circumstances.
Yeah, and we do that, at least among our superintendent's group.
Okay.
This is not a historical trend this year. This is an anomaly. And again, we don't know whether the anomaly is going to be just that, or if it is going to continue.
Okay, then future communication.
Further discussion? Comment?
Just a quick comment, Dr. Adamowski. Thank you so much for your sensitivity and your care of these students, and just the district for wrapping our arms around them. I just appreciate that.
Oh, they are our students now,
They're our kids.
so they're gonna do well.
Thank you.
I'd just like to echo Dr. Adamowski, Ms. Smith, and a few of the other comments. I think Norwalk has shown a unique ability to prepare for these kinds of issues that are unanticipated, and to deal with them. If you look at our achievement index over the past year, the City of Norwalk Public School System was the #1 performing urban school district in the entire state of Connecticut. If you look at some of the schools that our young people are getting into and our graduation rate, the strategic plan is clearly working. And with this anomaly, this issue that we're confronted with, the Norwalk Public Schools under Dr. Adamowski and with the Board of Education has put together a plan that will help us deal with it effectively in a manner that is not only required by law, but is the right thing to do. We need to educate these young people and help them achieve their greatest potential. So I know that it's a challenge, but we also have some wonderfully dedicated teachers in the classroom who are being asked to do so much more, and they're doing it. So I want to say thank you to the teachers. I want to say thank you to Dr. Adamowski, Mr. Hamilton, the Board of Education, and the people in the Norwalk Public School System who put this curriculum together and to prepare us probably to a far greater degree than any other community that would be meeting this challenge. So again, thank you, and I would encourage a favorable vote from the council.
Well, we thank you for your support, without which none of this is possible.
So having said that, I will call for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, if I can find my agenda, is item 7B10.
Yes.
Mr. Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move item 7B10 and 7B14 as they are both related. Resolved that a sum not to exceed $400,000 be and the same is hereby transferred from fund balance to community services account as noted for additional mental health and social services for city students. Item 7B14, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a contract with Mid-Fairfield Child Guidance Center, Inc. for a home mental health and family support services for public school children in amount not to exceed $400,000 on a single source procurement basis. And funds are available in the community services account as noted.
So Mr. Burnett has moved the item. Mr. Burnett, would you like to speak on the item?
Yes, in addition to the funding that we just approved for the Board of Education, that will go directly to the Board of Education, it's equally important to ensure that we provide the support services to the families of the students. And our new Chief of Community Services, Mr. Lamont Daniels, is already involved and activated in terms of bringing forward these critical services. So he's here to provide us a little more detail on that particular item.
Mr. Daniels.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Burnett. Greetings, everyone. For those that don't know me, I am your new Chief of Community Services. Just by way of introduction, because I know there are new members in the new Community Services Department, I oversee the Health Department, the Human Relations and Fair Rent Department, Early Childhood, Youth Services, and the two libraries, Main and South Norwalk. So you heard Dr. Adamowski talk about the educational needs and the call to duty that Norwalk stepped up to the plate. On the other side of that, what we've learned is that the children are suffering. We are hearing and learning about the stories of their experiences coming to the border. We are hearing and learning about their experiences spending time in the detention centers, moving to Chicago, which is one of the largest centers where children are transitioned across the country. And having been intimately involved with Helen Becker from the English Learning Department, I personally had an opportunity to meet and talk with some families about their experiences. And so on the other side, I'm here today to present to you that it is important from my office to identify how do we support them both emotionally and mentally. And so you have before you our proposal, and we have identified the Mid-Fairfield. They specialize in this work. They are the experts in this work. They already have an existing relationship with the Norwalk International Academy, so they understand how to move and operate within the school system. These are complex, specialized needs that the children and families require. The additional pieces of services that I'm recommending also, which will allow the Mid-Fairfield to actually do work not just with the child, but with the whole family. So that means also doing work in the family, because we want to treat the whole family because they're impacted by what has happened. And so today before you, I'm looking for your support and proposal to move forward with supporting this so that we can continue to help the families that are most in need and most impacted to date. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Do we have any questions, discussion? Mr. Hostin.
Yeah, just a quick question, Mr.
Sure.
Daniels. So we have the proposal here. I'm curious, though, what will be the mechanism by which these families are able to access these services?
Sure. So Mid-Fairfield already has an existing contract with the Norwalk International Academy. So as Dr. Adamowski identified in their funds, they'll also be increasing the social work services. So we'll triage. So those kids that are high needs, so the school will do what they would normally do with the children, but those high need kids that are exhibiting trauma, that are exhibiting the experiences, they will then be referred to the Mid-Fairfield, and they will then wrap around services. You need to provide the services in the home or at the school or wherever the best place to meet the needs of those children and their families.
Further discussion? I also encourage this a favorable response. The Norwalk Public Schools, they have social workers, but they cannot do the home visitation that is so necessary to analyze and assess a young person's situation at home, the family situation, and then recommend the appropriate care that they can have access to. I also want to commend Mr. Daniels. As you may or may not know, he pulled together approximately 30 nonprofit service organizations in and around the city of Norwalk, and made them aware of this situation, and ask them to work with us in helping these families, helping these young people, and we look for some good results from that. And also, in answer to a question Mr. Kites raised earlier, not only have we reached out to our federal delegation to see if there are funds available, Tier 1 funds, to help with unaccompanied minors coming into our school system, but we're also reaching out, I've reached out to the governor's staff to see if there is any possibility that there could be some extra funding available, not necessarily through ECS, but through some sort of a special appropriation, such as what we're approving here tonight, so that they may be able to help offset some of these costs. We're still kind of looking into that, but we're cautiously optimistic that perhaps some amount of money can be found. Any further discussion or any questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the two items as moved by Mr. Burnett? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I believe another motion is now in order.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Hostum took the gavel and picked up the charge. So thank you. A motion to adjourn. All in favor? We are adjourned at 8:41. Thank you.